Good evening. Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting for November 18th, 2014. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Carolyn Smart present.
Colin McNabb present.
And Sue Lysios present. I'd like you to join us, if you would, in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and the meeting is being tape recorded. 1.4, Chairman's additions or deletions. 3.7, Unitil. What, did that come in late, Andy?
Yes, and I only threw that on because it's getting late in the construction season.
That's true, yeah.
For them to get in and be able to patch the road, so
Okay.
I think it came in yesterday.
Okay, so we're adding 3.7. 3.8, Route 119 sidewalk, continuation of discussion. Andy, did you get an update on that at all?
No, I don't have any further information on that.
All right, then why don't we hold off until the next meeting then?
Actually, I had a few things that I wanted, because there was some things that I didn't get to discuss last time. So I'm going to talk about it this time. So if you want, I can bring it up under updates and reports. It's not, a lot of things, but I had some questions.
Okay.
It's up to you whether you want to leave it as an agenda item or...
Well, I mean, we can leave it as an agenda item, but I thought we were waiting back to hear back from Ed.
Yeah. And then
Correct.
we were supposed to talk about some other things too, so...
I mean, I'd kind of rather we just wait until next meeting when we're going to be able to talk about the whole thing. We were going to get prices, right?
Well, is it off the Mass Highway approved consultant and engineered list that Ed's consulting, that Ed's trying to get a...
He's using, I believe he's using Weston and Sampson.
See, I didn't see them on the approved list. I actually talked to Mass Highway, so I thought I'd let you guys know.
Okay, all right. I'll allow some discussion. We'll wait until 3.8.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we're going to have all of the information back.
Okay.
I do want to talk with the board about something. I mean, next is Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, reports, and I don't know what you'd call what I'm about to say, but I've heard from a couple of people in town that their perception is that our meetings are sometimes, one said, kind of a free-for-all. And I take that personally because I'm the chair and I should not be allowing that. So I'm going to ask that our board, as well as the public, try to adhere to board protocol, which is to speak through the chair, to speak when you're spoken to, when you're recognized. And maybe that will stop some of the back and forth kind of conversational things that have been happening, and it's appearing that that we're not as professional as we should be, and I would like to get that back on track, please. Okay. Any other reports, announcements?
Yes. Andy had actually just given this to me. It's regarding the VFW and their Visit Santa Claus program. So what it is, basically, we plan to have Santa Claus visit every participating family in Townsend on Christmas Eve between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m. What you need to do is supply us with a gift which is small and light enough for Santa to easily carry in one hand. The gift should be securely wrapped and have your child's full name and address clearly printed on the wrapping paper. The gifts can be left with the Townsend VFW at 491 Main Street, VFW Function Hall on Sunday, November 23rd, between the hours of 1 and 4. So that's the only announcement that we had. I did have some things that I want to discuss under updates and reports, and if you'd like, I can ask you the question instead of Mr. Sheehan. But found out the other day, and I'm not sure if it's true, so I wanted to ask that our new town accountant, I know we've had a few discussions and we weren't involved in the interview process, but I was told that she is only committed to us for 2 years and then she'll be retiring. Did we hire her for 2 years?
It was a permanent appointment.
I understand that, but did she tell you that she'll only be working for us for 2 years max?
Andy?
I think she said 2 to 3.
2 to 3. So how does that work with retirement? Will we be responsible for her assessment? I
No,
wasn't
retirement
sure.
assessments are shared among the various employers that you work for.
So we'll only be responsible for the few years that... Okay. The other question I had is I had asked last week about the ambulance repair. I know you were going to talk to the chief.
Oh, yeah, that goes back to, I didn't bring it with me. Oh, wait a minute. It goes back to late May. One of the ambulances backed into the garage out back here and sustained some damage, a little over $8,000 in damage.
So it's just repaired, that's
There
what
was
that was?
there was a claim filed and processed.
Okay. The other question that I had, Sue, and this is for you, is back on September 9th, a couple of months ago, we had discussions, and you, as the Board of Selectmen Chair, and I believe Cindy as the FinCom Chair, were going to do some revenue projections for us. Did we?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I talked with Andy about that this week. We're waiting for the new accountant to come on board, the first meeting. Andy, were you going to give an update on that?
I was, and I can speak to that now if you'd like.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, we're in a transitional period here with Kim Fales transitioning out and Terry Walsh transitioning in. Also with the change in administration at the State House, there won't be, we don't expect to get as early a word or as early an indication as we usually get on local aid. So I am working on on the revenue side of things, looking to see what that is going to look like for fiscal 16. But I think in the next, maybe in the next 3 weeks, would be in a position to get people together.
That's about
You
what
and
I thought,
Cindy and the
to mid-December.
finance department heads together and talk about where we are.
So when do we want to send out the budget letter to know what we expect from folks as far as budgetary-wise?
I'll be sending out budget forms in the next few weeks with some instructions. I talked to department heads today. I expect, at least in the initial round, that we'll be doing probably a level services request like we've done the last several years. We don't see big positive changes in revenues, and so I think the prudent approach at the beginning, at least, is to level fund on the service side. I told departments today to preliminarily anticipate something along the lines of 2.5% for personnel costs.
Okay.
That'll be formalized, and obviously I'll discuss that with the board at an upcoming meeting, as well as I usually do.
I'd like to make a suggestion or a request, please. At future meetings, can we flip what is now 1.5 and 1.6? Because what I think is happening sometimes is, one of us might be anticipating what Andy's going to talk about for updates anyway.
No, that's fine, Mary. I don't have a
Okay,
problem.
so can we do that, please?
Put my reports first.
Yeah.
To continue with that conversation, Andy, was your intent to still use the basis for the revenue projections as to what revenues we received in FY14 off the Schedule A?
We
I think Kim's working on that.
we look at revenues every year to see what our actuals were for the prior year and how we're trending for the current year, and make an informed decision at that point. That really just pertains to local receipts.
Yes.
But you know, the last several years, we've done very well on local receipts. I think we were about $250,000 above what we projected in 14. So you know,
Yes.
we did get a little bit more aggressive in some years, and that's proven to be a good approach. It has allowed us to maintain services, not have to reduce staff, reduce expenses, and still live within our means.
All right. The only other thing that I wanted to ask about, and you know, I know I brought it up on 4 different meetings, is the school building. Did you get a chance to talk to Rich?
Yeah, Rich and I spoke today about the about the permitting. Probably putting it on. We'll be putting it on a future agenda for the board to discuss. What he has proposed is a flat monthly stipend for the inspectors that would run through the duration of the project. He's working on exactly what those stipends would be. Understanding that in some months they may get overpaid, if you want to put it that way, and some months they'll get underpaid. Some months they'll be quite busy with inspections. They might be out there, you know, every day. Other months they may not be out there as much, but over time it will sort of even out. So he's going to do some additional work on that. The other thing that he talked about was that the board will have to set the fee for that project, as well as the fire project when that gets a little closer to coming forward.
Will he be ready to talk? I know we're having a site plan review in a couple of weeks with planning, et cetera. That was one of the notices we have here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a referral notice for hearings that are coming up with the ZBA and the planning board. Yeah, I think he'll probably be ready in a couple of weeks if we want to.
That's good timing then.
If we want to do that. He expects that plan review, preliminary plans will start to come in beginning of January. That's the schedule prepared by Sims, Maney, and McKee, and Heary.
And we did have one, building committee did have a site plan review. Irv was there, fire department, Rich,
Yeah.
Board of Health.
Right.
So I think.
Yeah, so they'll start to get formal, what they call 60% plans in January. That's a sort of preliminary plan set. The inspectors review them, flag issues that are obviously going to be, obviously need to be addressed. They go back to the design team. The design team refines those plans, and then they come back a short time later as a more formal developed set.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect an awful lot of change.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know,
You're getting
it's not
into the
the first
nitty,
time
you know, the
done these buildings.
the plans to this point are I wouldn't say they're 30,000-foot schematic plans, but things get to be more refined, you know, by room, by space, and more detailed system plans for electrical, plumbing, HVAC, all of that. So that stuff, that level of detail starts to take a lot of time for the inspectors. So
Have we
so
given,
that's probably in 2 weeks.
Have we given any thought, or I know we were going to discuss it at a future meeting about how we want to deal with the permit fees at all? I know, Andy, you
Well,
were
I
going
thought
to talk
that's what we're going to
Ken.
talk about in a couple of weeks.
Okay, you want to include that in the discussion too?
Yeah, I mean.
I just set them, yes, but I mean, how we want, if we want to isolate them, or they go into the general fund and we appropriate budgetarily?
That
or-
should be part of the discussion.
Okay.
That I'm assuming it'll be part of the discussion.
Okay.
And, input from Kim and/or Terry. Probably be Terry at this point.
Yeah, Kim finishes up this week.
Okay.
I just have two things. I wanted to bring up that we had talked about moving our meetings to 6 o'clock,
Oh, that's right, yeah.
and I forgot to mention at that last meeting, so, do you two have any problem with it?
I support.
No, that's
Okay.
fine.
'Cause my mind shuts off at 9 o'clock, so.
I'll keep that in mind.
The other thing, Sue, is speaking of your working group for the budget, I wanted to see if your group might want to revisit closing town hall on Fridays.
Well, the working group that we're talking about at this point is for revenue projections,
Okay.
okay?
Well, just something to put out there that just explore the cost savings of closing on Fridays.
Or if there are any.
If there are any.
Yeah. Andy, if, maybe you could just take a note of that.
Just in terms of the first item that Colin put out there, 6 PM, when do you want to initiate that?
Start next time if you like.
Next week, or next meeting? Okay.
Could just follow up to Colin on the study. We actually have looked at that a couple of times. We have quite a bit of data on it.
How long ago was it?
Andy, I was still there then. What was it, the second year you were here, we looked at
I
it?
think it was, when we had the budget,
Where we had the
when we had the
deficit.
Yeah.
mid-year cuts, fiscal 12, that probably was.
Oh, so you have a template to use
Yeah.
anyway,
Yep.
to revise it.
Yeah, the utility savings, I don't recall being that dramatic, but it's worth looking at, I think.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it might not be worth doing, it's just an idea I had.
No, I agree. Anything to cut costs.
Anything else?
No.
Town administrator updates, reports?
A couple, I'll try to go through them quickly. The Devon's Household Hazardous Products Collection Center will be open for the last time this year on December 3rd and December 6th. That's a Wednesday and a Saturday. Those are both weather permitting. Those are the last two dates it will be open until March. It's closed January and February. So if you have some solvents or things like that, now's the time. Neshoba Tech is making good progress over at the West Townsend Reading Room, building the handicap ramp. Framing is up. I had hoped to get over there today to get a quick peek at where they are, but didn't have a chance. So last week when I was there, most of the framing was done, so they're moving right along. The state came in yesterday and delivered us a check for $44,800 for the Clement property. So that has been closed on. Want to extend our thanks and appreciation to Leslie Gabrilska for her work on that. She really led the charge on that one. Not only in the discussions with Mass Wildlife, but also in chasing down the tax title issues and the title issues that existed on that property. That was a tax title acquisition that had, I don't remember all the details, but had some issues with it. And so working as, this goes back probably a year and a half, working with Kathy Rosbach to get that squared away and get Capola and Capola on that. So our thanks to Leslie for a job well done on that. Just a reminder, we've got a special town meeting two weeks from tomorrow, December 3rd. I talked about the revenue meeting. Because of the lateness of town meeting, we're in a bit of a crunch for the tax classification hearing. The hearing that we use to determine whether we classify property types or leave everything as a single assessment. So what I would recommend to the board is a brief meeting on December 9th. That would be the Tuesday. It'd be our off Tuesday, but it's the Tuesday after town meeting. We really have to wait till after town meeting until all the appropriations are done. So I talked to Vicki Tidman last week. She's concerned that if we wait till our regular meeting on the 16th, we'd be pushing it.
Okay.
So if the board is okay with that, we'll go ahead and set that up. And then the last thing, just a couple of farewells and thank yous to Kim Fales and to Dave Profit. They both finish up this week. So they've been great employees, and sad to see them go, but happy for them for the situations that they're both stepping into.
Yes, our thanks. Anything else? That's it? Okay. 1.7, approval of meeting minutes from November 4th.
I would move that we approve the meeting minutes for November 4th, 2014.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Appointments and hearings, bicycle safety certificates. Police Chief Irving Marshall will present the award for safety certificates.
Thank you. You are probably all aware, every year we run a bike helmet safety program where we go around and hand out ice cream certificates to those young and old that we see riding their bikes in communities, in our community, and practicing bicycle safety by wearing a helmet. I think we celebrated a youth here either last year or the year before, who I think probably avoided either death or serious injury when he was hit by a car and he was wearing his helmet. And I'm pleased to say that since we started this program, we haven't had any real serious or fatalities involved with bicycle accidents. So it's a program that was started here a number of years ago by a local resident. We've continued to do it throughout the years, and I think it's worked. It's not only changed the mindset, I think, in this community, but probably across the country and worldwide. I mean, you see people wearing helmets all the time now, you know, when riding their bike. So it's a program that I strongly believe in, and I think it works. At the culmination of our program in November, we have a drawing. We take the ice cream certificates that were submitted and draw 4 names from that and award those to $150 gift certificates each for their choice of going to a bicycle shop and picking out whatever bike they want. So with that being said, I just ask that there might be, I was looking through these today and there's a lot of duplicates in here. So I think we've never drawn duplicates before, but I would suggest that if there is a duplication of names, that we just double up on and award it to the ones that are drawn. I think it's only fair. So with that being said, I just ask you to pick one and just read the name only. And
Not too high there.
Right.
Thank you.
So if you just read the names there, and I think they're all legible.
I have Grace Willett.
I have Ava Coates.
And Alex Cando?
I think it is Cando, yeah.
And Alexis Connor.
No duplicates.
Great, and we'll notify those recipients and send them their
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chief. That
congratulations.
is a wonderful program.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chief.
Good timing, too, just before the holiday.
So, could I get 5 minutes of this?
Going to break for 5, please? Thank you. We're at 2.2. Townsend Ashby Youth Soccer Association is here to discuss the renewal of the lease of the Squanicook Meadows and general operation fields. Who do we have here?
So, my name is Joseph Sameo, president of Townsend Ashby Youth Soccer. With me here is our vice president, Jeff Rice, treasurer, Brian Call, IT director, Eric Gruber, referee director, Christine Sundberg. We have our coach and player development director, Andy Jastrab, and our travel director, Phil Falzone. Also, we have Jennifer Pettit of the Conservation Commission here, who's been a tremendous asset for us as well. So we're here today to discuss the extension of the lease. So we were looking to employ the auto renewal for the 5-year period. We have reached our anniversary date of 10 years at Squanicook Meadows, and I myself have been a member of the organization for over 6 years at this point. We have a tremendous amount of seniority on the board of directors at this point, and we're looking to go through and call Squanicook Meadows our home. And so we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have a question?
So I very much am totally supportive of renewing the lease, but I wanted to just clarify a couple things. One of them being the ability of town residents to utilize the fields.
Sure.
Which I think I found it when I looked through the lease. It's in 5.6.
Yeah, used by others?
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that like everything is clear on that the town residents do have the right to use the fields when TASA is not, there's no TASA events going on.
Yeah, there is, and I think, so, I think there is a notation in terms of just notifying TASA of that use. I think this past season we had, unfortunately, a few instances of vandalism to the fields.
Yeah.
So what we had done is we had closed off certain portions that were hit by vehicles riding on the fields. The damage was extensive in the sense of impacts to the irrigation system that we've paid to install in there, to sprinkler heads and to valve boxes. Also, there was ruts in the fields from tire marks, so we had shepherds come out and kind of reseed, reloom those areas. So we were trying to close off those areas so that they could regrow. So as you can imagine, any of those type of damage impact areas could become hazardous to children that are running on those fields, and coaches and spectators as well. So, and during that time period where we had closed off one of the fields, there were some residents from nearby locations that were on the field. I practically sleep there, so I was there for my daily visit and kind of walked up and had a conversation with them and asked if they could kind of move to the areas that weren't being secluded from that damage. So yeah, we're aware of that, and as long as we're aware of any town residents that want to use the field so that it doesn't conflict, because we do plan events and clinics and camps there, so we just want to make sure that somebody doesn't plan, hey, we're going to play wiffle ball next Friday, but we actually have an event planned there.
Right.
So what would the procedure be if someone, I mean, let's say someone called the town hall to ask. Would we give them your number,
Sure.
your contact information? And at the same time, I would imagine when you speak to those people, you would let them know what the rules are about where they can park and not park, and those kinds of things that they would need to adhere to as well. Right?
Yeah, and we're going to obviously ask some poignant questions as far as what type of activity is going to take place. You know, we don't want any alcohol on the premises. You know, what vehicles are you going to have? On-site vehicles need to stay to the paved areas. How many people? You know, we are the suppliers of the insurance policy to the location, so we need to make sure, and that policy is stringent upon only soccer activities coordinated by TASA. My information is on our website, my cell phone number and email address, and I believe Andrew does have it as well. I'd be more than willing to speak with anybody who's interested in utilizing the space.
I did have one other question. So I've never been down to the TASA fields, and I went down to take a look, and there was a gate that hadn't been there before.
Correct.
And I checked with the town administrator, and the selectman's office had no idea a gate had been put up.
Yeah, so that gate was erected, I think, mid-October, and what happened was this was the third. This was the third bout of vandalism that we had had, thousands and thousands of dollars. And later, in coordination with the Conservation Commission, we had discussed putting a gate, boulders, kind of closing off certain areas so vehicles can't access. And in partnership with the Conservation Commission, we were able to put up that gate. We did notify the police department and the fire department of the combination for the gate in case they needed access to it for any emergency. And I'll take responsibility for not notifying the selectmen.
I actually spoke, I happened to see the fire chief, and he had mentioned that, that you had dropped off the combination, but he said that there was, what's it called, Andy?
Knockbox.
So that gate that's there today is really temporary. It was built out of old goalposts.
I was trying to figure out what it was made of.
Yeah, so one of our members, actually Chris Janoder, spent some time there after listening to me rant and rave about all the damage that was done. And I said, do you think you can put something up just temporarily? And Jennifer was there and had kind of put a couple posts with some vinyl coated wire, and he went out there and he did that. So although it looks very good, it is temporary in our plans. We have some quotes out there to some iron companies to build a nice gate for us. And when we do that, we are looking into the cost of purchasing a Knox box that all emergency personnel can access, and there's one coded key that matches all the Knox boxes in town, and they would have that.
That's all I had.
Jennifer?
Well, I just wanted to say, to get back to your first question, that for use of the fields, because it's sensitive habitat, conservation would probably need to be involved. I'm sure that Joe or Taysom would say something to Emily or I to bring to conservation. Emily Norton couldn't be here tonight. She had a conflicting meeting. But they would need to be informed and educated about sensitive habitat, and we ask people to stay off the slopes and different things like that is, we're all aware of, but new people coming in to use it would need to be aware of that.
And I guess that was my point. If they contact Joe and it's like your responsibility, it's your lease,
Right,
to make sure that whoever says they want to use the field is informed about those things.
We have very good communication between conservation and TASA now, and I'm sorry that somehow you got left out of the loop on the gate, because we did communicate back and forth, and I tried to block it off. And it's a much better situation now, but the gate, there was a lot of damage, and I even discovered that I hadn't noticed before, that the trucks that went in and tore up and did, was going on $2,000 worth of damage to be repaired. There was an area way beyond where they were, where there's even more damage, which we hadn't seen in the first time, and I just noticed it within the last week and a half. Just
When
because
did this happen?
Labor Day
The first instance was Labor Day weekend. The second instance was probably a weekend or two after that, and the third instance couldn't have been the following week.
It was 3 times within 5
So,
weeks.
did you catch who did the damage?
Townsend police did apprehend 2 of the individuals that had taken responsibility.
Good. Good.
Second,
For the,
not the third time.
yes.
But then we've had other people come down, and this isn't, and this series
Yes.
of drivers on the field is not the first time, or the 3 times, they're not the only times, they're some of the worst.
One of the challenges that we have is in the winter, there's a lot of snowmobile activity down there. And with the frozen turf, there's a frost layer that, if impacted, kind of presses down on the turf area and impacts our sprinklers. So we find that at the end of every winter, we're doing repairs to our irrigation system. So in conjunction with the gate, and then we have a plan in place with Shepherds to finish lining the field areas with boulders that are already existing in half of the area, we're hoping to minimize that damage.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is the area posted?
There are several signs notating that the area is a highly sensitive area for
No,
wildlife.
that's not what I meant. It's more posted, no trespassing without the express permission of TASA or the,
At this time, it's
Town.
not, based on historical trend of the space is available to use for all town residents.
without the express permission of?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I mean, it sounds like, I'm trying to give folks the benefit of the doubt, not people with trucks that are causing damage, but, snowmobile people or things like that may think that it's just open space and that it's a town field and that they're able to go there. If there are no postings anywhere telling them,
snowmobiles.
yeah, no snowmobiles allowed or
Yeah, we've been incredibly flexible in terms of utilizing the space, and we didn't want to monopolize the space because there are, it's a great space to walk the dog. It's a great space to run around with a child. There's a group of gentlemen that go out there and they fly model aircraft, and we're open to all of that. It's when that activity borders upon damage.
There's also, people bring children there to sled, and this is one thing when we're interfacing with TASA, trying to figure out about keeping people on the asphalt area to keep some of it open so people can sled with their children in some areas in the winter. A lot of people go, many people go there fishing and walking. So it's always been a town property, and the uses has been appropriate for the most part, except for vehicles and snowmobiles when there's not enough snow cover. It's just been.
And we're willing to work with the board to kind of craft some verbiage around what that signage would entail.
I mean, I don't know what the ordinances are about snowmobiles and,
The verbiage in the lease does state that in the off-season, that responsibility falls on the selectmen to, open that space up for any other organization. Obviously, we would like the,
organizations are fine, but maybe snowmobiles shouldn't be.
I mean, Sue, I'm happy to vote to renew this tonight, because
Yeah.
all my questions have been answered.
Okay, Carolyn, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a few. The lease isn't terminating till June 30th, 2016, right?
Correct.
We're gonna vote to renew it this
Should
early?
let it automatically renew.
correct.
Yeah, this early. The only thing that I thought maybe, I certainly support that. I don't want you to think I don't. The only thing I thought maybe is that when we renew it for 5 years, we can kind of craft the verbiage around the section 5.6, use by others, so that the folks in town clearly know what they may or not be allowed to use, so there's no confusion like what happened with Colin when he received a phone call wondering why they couldn't use it.
Okay.
And I didn't know if anybody would be open to that.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, I'm just not sure it would do much good to put it in the contract. It's pretty obvious when you read it. It's just that these people aren't going to be able to, they're not going to have access to the contract. So I think it's just a communication thing. If they call somebody and let's say they call recreation, we should let recreation, for example, know, to contact them.
I think that it's a great point. One thing we've had a meeting with the Conservation Commission. We have kind of a committee put together with Emily Norton, Jennifer, Jeff, and myself to kind of talk about Squanicook, the lease, because there's a lot of minor revisions that we'd like to make to this lease in its entirety, and the verbiage kind of dictates that this 5-year renewal period is as it's set forth in the existing parameters of the lease. So I think that after this 5-year extension, that there's a big opportunity to kind of discuss in each portion of this lease and what recommendations can we make, what recommendations can the Board of Selectmen make to make this more clear-cut and defined. My understanding is that 10 years ago when this was drafted, it was kind of rushed and put together to kind of get TASA out there and use those fields that weren't being utilized at the time. So I think there are a few areas of opportunity within the lease.
Do you want to work on that prior to us renewing this? Or is
I
it
would rather-
because you need to make plans?
Yeah, I think we need a home, and we'd like to have a definitive space for that 5-year period. And then I think that, we can start the process in looking at all items, which we've already done, kind of gone through all of them, and We can do that, and I think we can have a few meetings with the board as well.
Okay, why don't we, I mean, if we have a motion to renew it and to open up discussion, to open up discussion at a later date for any revisions that might come forward.
Well, before I do that, refresh my memory, was this contract part of the RFP? Do you know, Andy? 'Cause I don't know how much we could amend.
I believe
existing.
the original lease says that it can be renewed,
Yes.
so
yeah.
that would
I just
allow.
mean to make any amendments like we're talking about. I honestly couldn't remember. I should have asked.
If you look under number 2, it says that, it talks about the extension,
Yes, yes.
and it says that it's the existing document, terms and conditions.
That's what I was reading. That's why I was wondering if it's not in the RFP, maybe we could check to see if we could do some amendments. If not, we are stuck with it for the next 5 years. But
I don't,
If
Jennifer?
you are going to vote to renew it, I would appreciate if the memorandum of understanding that we've been working on with the Conservation Commission, TASA, and the Endangered Species Program would be included with this. That's the way we thought we'd get around, be able to add to the lease without changing it, would be to put a memorandum of understanding that we all agree to with.
see, I don't know.
I mean, it does talk about it in the lease. I'm just not sure, it sounds like Conservation may want some additional things written.
yeah, I think one of the things that we talked about was any verbiage that requires approval of the Board of Selectmen, Conservation would also like to be notified of any of those changes so that they can provide their feedback or input to the board and assist in making any decisions. So, and we were in agreement with that.
And I think that we, I didn't realize you would actually be voting on the lease itself tonight, so we haven't put together a formalized list. We were going to meet again, everyone's been really busy since we had our meeting, and then we would, bring that in to add to it. But
Would you like
yes,
us to
it's-
hold off on the vote?
Well, I think our understanding is that the vote is for a renewal of the 5 years for the terms as it exists today. And we would like to extend that, and so that we can make our plans for the next year to 5 years. And then in working in conjunction with the Conservation Commission, we can compile some revisions and amendments to the existing lease to draft a new lease come 2021.
The only other thing that I would say is, I understand, Jennifer, it's been you and Emily working with the group?
Yes,
Okay.
and David Paulson from the Endangered Species Program.
Okay, it would be important for you to meet with the whole Conservation Commission, okay? I want to make sure that everybody on that board is involved in whatever discussions you
Well,
have.
They did initially came into a meeting, and then it was, I believe, agreed at the board that Emily and I would get together and meet with them.
Okay, but you need to report back to your board, is my...
Yeah,
We have
so the
my
meeting that we
plans tomorrow
attended,
night.
the meeting that we attended, it was agreed upon to create a subcommittee with 2 members of the Conservation Commission and 2 members of the Board of Directors of TASA, and then the Conservation Commission members would report back to their board, and then the TASA members would report back to ours.
How are you inclined?
Well, here's my dilemma, because I'd like to work with you on the verbiage, but I'm not sure we can change the existing document according to these terms. So I don't know if we want to get clarification from council, or if we just want to move to support to renew it for the next 5 years, and then redo the RFP and send it back out with some of these changes involved in the next contract. I'm not sure what direction the board would want to take.
Andy, do you have any suggestions?
Well, I think that's fine, and I think it might be beneficial to hear what the commission says after their meeting tomorrow night. I guess I don't read the lease as being so strictly worded that it can't be modified. It says the same terms and conditions, or some phrase like that. I think that is a more general statement about the lease. I think if you wanted to tweak it, I guess it depends on what the nature of these items are.
Okay, well, none of us are attorneys, so
Right, and
I think I'd like, if you don't mind, I would like to hear what town council says, okay? The other thing is that I think it's important that conservation meet as a board and talk about what their needs are. And at the same time, we can be talking to council and perhaps take up the actual signing of this at our next meeting.
Right, so I think that the last meeting that we attended with the Conservation Commission, it was on their agenda to discuss the lease. We were present, and then the takeaways from that were that this was going to be renewed based on the existing terms. However, we would expand upon the relationship that we've already built with Conservation to make sure that we're in sync in terms of what can be done, what can't be done, what the boundaries areas and what they
I think
are.
it's important to put something in writing, even if it's just something off to the side,
Okay.
okay?
And are there any other major concerns in terms of the verbiage of the existing lease?
I have none.
Okay.
I have none. But if you wanted to do some tweaking, then
So could
we can just check with council and see.
So could we not proceed with a motion to extend the lease based on the 5-year terms? And then if Conservation Commission has any concerns, whereas we're defaulting on any contact, they could come to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen, as being the landlord, could basically evict us from the space?
Well, my issue, I don't think the
Right.
issue
We don't like to
is,
go in that direction.
the issue isn't so much as the conservation part. That's kind of a loose end. But to Carolyn's point, it's like, can we make changes to this? That's what I want to find out from
I
council.
mean, I guess if there's no immediate concerns with the existing lease as it is, I mean, we've been operating on that space for 10 years, what changes do we need to make?
Colin?
So I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Joseph.
Joseph, sorry about that. What and my understanding is that we'll renew the 5-year for 5 years, and in that 5-year period is when they'll be doing the work on the lease.
That's fine.
Right, because
And
we
that's-
will have to draft a new lease
Okay.
with new terms.
Right,
Yep.
after the
Um,
Just to let you go ahead and,
And then that way we know that we are in this space, and we can commit to our members, the children, and Neshoba Valley, which is the governing body that we play under, that we will be with the organization, we have a team.
And I mean,
I don't think it's our board's intention to not renew
No, of
at
course,
all.
and that's-
So, if you want to do it that way, that's fine.
right. And I know, like, for instance, several of my nieces and nephews play for Tesa, and I'm a terrible uncle for never going to any of their games, but, I mean, they've told me that
You
they
said
know.
that publicly,
I know. And it's gonna be on the internet too. But I mean, I know just from talking to them, they know that there's certain areas they're not supposed to go near. And I think that Tesa does a good job informing the parents of where they can and cannot go. So my opinion is that we should vote on it this evening.
Could I have a motion, please?
I would move that the Board of Selectmen issue written consent to extend the lease for an additional 5 years to expire on June 30th, 2021, as outlined in Section 2 term of the lease agreement between the Town of Townsend and the Townsend Ashby Youth Soccer Association.
So you just read it from there, right?
Yeah.
You all set with that motion?
I don't know what she's reading it from,
It's from the
from the letter.
from the
Oh, I
lease.
didn't even look at the agenda. Yes, I read it in turn.
And two. Back. And two.
And I just added the additional date to June 30th, 2021, because that would be 5 years.
All set?
Yes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
So just a clarification, no need to talk to council on this, because at the end of the 15-year, term or before then, we would have to issue a new RFP anyway, so we could address any issues at that time.
Well, I wouldn't mind having town council's opinion and whether we could amend it at some future point. I know they were working on an addendum or a...
Well, why don't we wait until they come to us with that, and
Okay.
and if, depending on what the timing is, I don't want them to feel like, you know, they're under the gun having to do that, so, okay? We'll handle that when the time comes. I'd rather not spend the money if I don't have to right now. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, thank you.
Thank you very much.
2.3, Cable Television Advisory Committee. Committee will be present to discuss the renewal of the cable franchise agreement with Comcast. Would you come up? Hi.
You want to call us to order?
Sure. Oh, that is our meeting,
It
isn't
is, it's official, we have a quorum.
Sure. We have a quorum. Call the meeting to order at 7:50.
54.
54. We're here to move on to the next step with this contract renewal. We've spent a few months going through the contract proposal that Comcast sent to us. We've compared that to the old contract. We've made tweaks to it, suggested languages. We've sent those off to town council. They've reviewed those changes. They sent us back a copy that included some additional things that they wanted tweaked. It's all mostly just verbiage. And I think we're now ready to send this contract back to Comcast for them to accept or modify or negotiate with some things that they may not agree with.
So for the benefit of the public as well as for us, could you just give us a high-level summary?
Yeah. There were two main issues when the contract came up for renewal. One was to address the residents that don't have cable television now, and the other was the public access channel, which is now run by Comcast. And we are proposing, and Comcast has agreed in principle to providing cable to all the residents that don't have it, and allowing the town to run the public access channel.
Okay, so on the first one, the access, they've agreed in principle. What does that mean?
There's a section in the contract for transferring the public access channel over from Comcast to...
A public access corporation that we would form.
Okay, that one I get, because that's similar to what other towns
Right,
are
right.
doing as well, right? But the one in terms of supplying the service to folks that don't have it today, you said they agreed in principle to that?
They've agreed to upgrade the infrastructure, which was the stumbling block. And the stumbling block was the poles mostly, that some of the poles were insufficient. They've agreed to replace those poles, or work with Unitil to replace the poles that thereby would enable them to run cable, and they've agreed to do that.
At whose expense?
It is at the cable subscriber's expense.
So the people that live there would be contributing to that?
Everybody in town would be contributing.
Everybody is contributing to that?
It's about 40 or 41 cents per household.
And how many houses are we talking about?
Do you know? How many aren't served now?
Yes.
It's about 35 or 40.
40, something like that, yeah. It's the whole Vinton Pond Road area.
There's a stretch of New Fitchburg Road, a little piece of Bayberry Hill Road, Sauna Row, and Vinton Pond Road.
So is there a process where, I mean, I don't feel like that's something that we can say, yeah, we're gonna supply it to this area, and everybody's cable bill is gonna reflect an increase. I mean, for public utilities and whatnot, isn't there some kind of hearing or whatever that needs to be done so that everybody knows that? I mean, I know we're talking about it now, but,
Well, cable is a little different from like electric utilities and gas utilities that go through the DPU. And Steve, you may know, Stan, you may know, I don't think that cable companies are regulated like public utilities, but I might be wrong on that. Do you?
They're regulated, but they're regulated in a different way than like the electric company and the phone
Yeah,
company.
not under the DPU, right?
Well,
Under the-
some of it falls under that, but
Yeah.
their rates are regulated by the Cable Act, which is a different act.
Yeah, federal level act.
Yeah, it's a federal act.
Yeah.
it just seems as though it's affecting a large number of people for a very small number of services. And that large number of people is not the group that we've heard from. We've heard from the people who want it, obviously, that number of households, because they don't have it today.
Right.
But it's not the same as going to town meeting, for example, and saying everybody's bill is gonna go up by 41 cents.
I don't know how to facilitate that.
I don't either.
This is the process that Comcast, this is how they do it. So I don't know how to facilitate.
Well, I
Whether
mean,
it's a town meeting vote or it's.
from Comcast's perspective, I mean, I'm just thinking it probably doesn't matter to them, because they're gonna get the money to do it.
Right, right.
Carolyn?
Yeah, refresh my memory. Wasn't there a problem with some of the households that Unitil actually had to upgrade some of their poles because they were too short, so they
Yeah,
couldn't run the
yeah,
wires?
that's been the
So that
basic
cost
issue.
isn't going to be part of the installation of the new poles?
The whole dollar amount to upgrade the infrastructure and give everybody service is what's rolled over into the users' fees.
I understand that, but I'm just trying to understand if it's Comcast coming out, obviously they're billing it for them, but it is Unitil going to
Unitil
be
will replace
absorbing the
the
cost to
poles.
put the poles in. So what is it that Comcast is saying
So
that
there's
they're?
two costs. There's the make-ready cost.
Okay.
That's Unitil. So Unitil is going to make ready the poles, which could either be a replacement or an extension.
And who pays for that?
Well, that's the make-ready. And then, so it's all, so there's that, and then there's the actual cost of Comcast building the infrastructure, which is the vast majority of the cost.
That's what it is, okay.
If we had, if the make-ready work was not that much
It
money.
wasn't that
We got a
much.
quote from Unitil, everybody looked at it and said, oh, that's not that much money. Most of the money was involved in
The
Comcast
infrastructure.
building the infrastructure, running cable, fiber optic, down a trunk and then breaking off to each household. So that was where the vast majority of the money was. I can't remember the exact figure.
I don't remember
I can
either.
understand that, that's.
The make-ready work was actually fairly small.
What's 41 cents times all of the users?
There's 2,400 subscribers approximately. I'd have to figure it
I
out.
can't do the math.
I think the total cost was,
What was the total?
yeah, it was around.
What's the total cost?
Yeah, we have it.
I don't have it. I can't put my fingers on it.
It was
right here.
around 100,000.
That's what I'm remembering.
2,400.
I think you're
It was around $100,000 total cost for the thing. So it's going to be amortized out over the full 10 years of the contract, if we do it that way.
And that's gonna allow every homeowner in Townsend to be able to
Right.
subscribe to cable, which they're at a very big disadvantage now, they don't have access to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a real
We have
disadvantage for
petitions,
people
and
that
this has
have
been
school-age
ongoing.
kids. Like my kids, they need to go on the internet to do homework and do things, and they can't. I have to take them to my office, which is in Bolton, to get online, because we have satellite, but as Jerry can attest to, satellite, you might as well just have nothing, so.
So,
And there's no option through FiOS out here?
No,
Not
there's
in
no
Townsend.
other option. It's a
No, that's what I'm saying.
Or
It's the same
DSL.
thing.
in town.
Right.
Yeah.
it would be $49 over the course of 10 years.
The full 10 years.
The full 10 years.
Yeah.
I just come from a very conservative community. I live in an extremely conservative community. I would feel better, and this is just me personally, but I would feel better hearing from some folks, you know, 41 cents isn't going to break my budget, you know, but
Could we give the public a period to comment on the, I mean, not, I don't know how,
I don't know how
they
they
can
comment.
call it.
no,
We could
no.
have, I mean, we could hold another public hearing. There's nothing says we can't have another one.
Right,
you had a public hearing.
We had one,
we
but
did,
Yes.
right.
but that was before Comcast had proposed this infrastructure solution. So we could actually have another one and talk about that.
You know, I think that might be a
It
good
would
idea.
be fine. It would actually be beneficial.
I think it would be a good
Yeah,
idea.
let's hold one, schedule it, and we'll have it.
Okay.
When's the earliest we could have it?
Just in fairness to the
I think
community,
it's a good
That's
idea.
fine.
Let's
you
do it.
know? And I mean, I'm sure folks are gonna say 41 cents.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's like when the water system expands, you know, it's sort of divided up amongst all the water
Yeah,
takers. It's
yeah, but I
almost
don't,
identical.
but I don't like to do it without people knowing
Let's
it.
have the public hearing.
I think the other thing we'd like to know is, what's the process for this, for the contract now going back to Comcast, for them to have their say about
What
it?
do we need for hearing notice?
Do we have, do they come in, or I don't,
They definitely can come in.
Yeah, they
And they-
came into the last one.
Yes.
right?
They'll
I
bring
would
us to
expect that they would come. They were willing to come tonight. If they, you know, they called me and said, if you think it would be helpful,
We'll be there.
we'll be there. I told them, since it was the first time the board was seeing it, I didn't expect any final action from the board. So I think holding a hearing and alerting them, allowing Comcast to come in and see this in advance, I think that would
I
certainly be
guess
helpful.
that was my main question is, will you forward that to them? Should we forward the contract to them? What's the process for that? We're really just an advisory committee.
Have we
right?
heard back from Copeland and Page yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
They sent back the
Yeah.
contract with, Bill looked at it, and he incorporated everything that we had asked for in there, and he made a couple of little
Okay.
legalese type tweaks.
So he
in
liked
there.
everything we did, because we were
Yeah.
really careful.
Right.
Well, you guys have been dealing directly with Ben
We have.
and Jane anyway, so it probably makes the most sense for you to continue to.
Okay.
We'll
that's
do that.
fine.
Rather than add you know,
Mm-hmm.
So what's the notification period? Is it 30 days? It's probably at least 30 days.
I probably have the notice from the last one.
So we could
Can,
have,
Is it under the regular public hearing, Master No Law, or is this a special cable
I think
hearing?
it's a special one. So
Well-
we advertised twice. We advertised in consecutive weeks, June and July of 2012,
okay.
It's been a while.
for a hearing in late July. So it looks like probably 30 days for the first notice.
So let's set up for January.
Okay, so can you work, Andy, can you work with them on the hearing notice and setting the date and all of that?
So the first date has to be 14 days before the hearing. So you could do it as, well, yeah, January is probably easier.
January would be better, yeah.
Otherwise, you're like December 16th and you're,
We have a couple more notes on the Public Access Corporation.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that.
The, so Comcast agreed to the full 5%. They didn't want to, but I said, well, you know, you can keep running it yourself, because they ran so. When we transition to the Access Corporation, Comcast will pay 5% of cable revenue to that Access Corporation to run it. So that will run both the government channel and Channel 8. So that'll be good. At that point, we could ask Pepperell to join in with us and Ashby, if we so desire. The only unusual thing about it is that the contract mandates that within 12 months we transition to an Access Corporation. They wanted us to transition in 3 months. We said, forget it. We need at least 12 months to set this all up. And we might do it in 3 months, but we don't want to have to do it in 3 months.
So how does that Access Corporation get formed? Is that something that the board appoints?
Actually, Linda Sanders from Ashby was going to do all the paperwork for anybody can file that nonprofit status. What is it? It's a 4.
501c.
That's it.
Well, that's just the filing for the corporation, but who does the selection of the members?
Of the board.
Yeah, I'd have to check with Bill Hewig at Copeland, but I would have to say it's the board. It's a newly created,
It's an new entity,
it's
yeah.
a new entity of the town, I guess.
You know, I mean, to set,
It's a sort of chicken and egg thing, though,
Yeah.
because I think,
because you have, you know, we need to set the number of, and terms and however
Yeah.
the whole thing works. So we need some specifics on that.
We have the twofold, though, because with the Public Access Corporation, you have to have the president and the vice president, the treasurer, and the
Right, you have to
secretary as part
actually
of the corporate
corporation, right.
papers, and then you're gonna be having a committee, so, yeah, we definitely need council to outline how that process should
council.
work.
I've heard 5 members is kind of typical for these.
I don't know if it
I was on
revolves.
one that had about 19, I'd lean more towards 5.
That's a big one.
That sounds more reasonable. So if you could look into
Yeah, I'll
that,
check with Bill
too.
on that.
The other thing is that, you know, with the new high school being built, there's going to be a TV studio there, too. Hopefully, all of the, I know that the high school is going to have the infrastructure that's necessary, too. So hopefully, you know, the Public Access Corporation would be able to work something out there as well.
Yeah, it's been a pretty ongoing relationship for years. I kind of assume that they want to continue that.
I don't know, I just know that the space part of it, they're allotting some space for the equipment.
Yeah.
Much more than that, I don't think that they were able to, we weren't able to put that in because it was not reimbursable.
Yeah, just space is all the Access Corp needs.
Yeah,
If they-
space
they-
for equipment, but like I said, the infrastructure that's gonna be necessary.
They give us a space, we'll build the infrastructure with the money that we get. Because we have money.
Yeah, we have some money.
We have some money in an account now.
When I say space, it's probably gonna be more like a closet area.
Oh, well, we can't build a studio in that.
No, you don't build the studio, that's my point. They have a studio, so if you're gonna have your own studio, it would have to be somewhere else. Okay,
Okay.
so,
They did, I did talk to Joan about that, and they did use some sort of industry standard dimensions for that space.
for that area.
Yeah.
Right. Okay,
Jerry has it.
I was just going to,
oh, I'm sorry.
that's all right. I was just going to add that part of the infrastructure upgrade includes places like the community center, where we're going to upgrade some of the cable and try to be able to run the videos from that too.
And the senior center.
There are
Senior center.
Town offices that some of them don't have, what, the cemetery doesn't have cable access and
Yep,
so forth. So
that's
we're gonna
all in
build
there,
that
too.
up. And the other thing is that, you know, Comcast, under the Cable Act, is restricted on what they can charge.
Yes,
And they are below that.
they're below it.
So 41 cents is still way below what they could possibly charge residents of towns and stuff. We think it's a fair thing.
It's more a disclosure thing
Yeah.
that I'm concerned with, so, just to make sure that, you know, folks know this is what you're pitching in for.
Right.
I think they figured out where the market is, and sort of like they're right at it, you know, because they'll lose business if they start charging more.
So are we all set? Well, when can we get an update on this, Andy? If we said we're gonna do a hearing in January, then
Yeah. I think you can do a hearing on January 13th, and I'll talk to Bill Hewig immediately and see what he has for answers to these questions.
okay.
Because that'll be the final hearing before we give it over. So that's a really excellent idea, really.
And so you guys will share this with
We'll share that with-
Comcast in the
Yes.
meantime? Okay.
Great.
That will give them a chance to look at it too. That way, if they have any questions or comments, they can
Right.
bring them to the table and we can hash them out at that time.
Right, yeah, that's fine. Thank you all for your work.
Yeah, it's a
Yes,
good
thank you
committee.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being patient. We've been kind of slow.
We've been busy.
Okay, moving on, 3.1, Kinder Morgan Northeast Direct Pipeline Project Update.
Not a lot to provide for updates this week, Sue. There was a coalition meeting on Monday that Leslie attended in my stead. Most of the chatter had to do with the seeming possibility now that Kinder Morgan may seek an alternate route and abandon this corridor that they had originally identified and go up through southern New Hampshire and across that way and then down into Massachusetts to get to the Dracut station. We've been told by Kinder Morgan that they're planning to file an amended pre-filing with FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which will presumably, although we won't know for sure until we see it, will make that northern route the preferred option, or the preferred route. But there's been certainly a lot of interest in what has happened over the last couple of weeks in terms of these discussions about the alternate route, the northern route, and the potential that they'll be leaving us alone. Obviously a lot left to discover in this one.
Yeah, and like we said at the coalition meetings, it's not so much don't come through my neighborhood. The intent isn't to push it into somebody else's either.
Right. And
the real questions that we had at the beginning were, is this really necessary for Massachusetts?
yeah, the other thing that came...
And that's where the pressure was coming from.
Right. And the other thing that Leslie said came up was this low demand study that was commissioned by the state a couple of months ago. The people that are closer to the energy industry and that know its machinations better than most of us are not terribly optimistic about this low demand study. It's viewed as a sort of rush job, and maybe as something that is really intended just to placate people. And so I hope that's not the case. But we do tend to get kind of cynical about when projects like this come along, and we assume the worst of all the other parties to it. So we'll find that out, I guess, as time goes on as well. But that low demand study will be done shortly. So not much else to add. The next meeting is December. I already forgot it. Another one out of our area, December 8th, up in Andover. So I'll try to attend that one. With the short staffing in my office, I've missed a couple of meetings, but we'll be back on track soon, so I'll try to get back to
And I have not been able to make them. I have another commitment on Monday mornings. So.
Yeah, Monday is a really tough day for a lot of us, and John Moak and I tried to move off Monday mornings, but it worked for a lot of people, and it's one of those things. It's kind of like a snowball. Once you meet once on a particular date and time, that kind of becomes the default time. But I expect to be able to go to the next one.
Okay. Thank you. 3.2, continued discussion of funding for legal services associated with the Northeast Energy Direct Gas Pipeline Project.
So this is just we talked about it last week, carried it over to have some further discussion on it. as I said last meeting, to date, no other communities have appropriated funds for this purpose, but, you know, if we appropriate funds and we don't use them, it just goes to free cash.
So since there's the possibility of the route changing, why don't we table this until we find out for sure if the preferred route is going to be changing?
I don't have any problem with that. I mean, if push comes to shove, we can always do some kind of emergency something,
Well, like I said at
if
the
it gets that
last,
bad, you know?
said at the last meeting, you know, if we appropriated additional money, it's there for us to use, but I can honestly tell you both that I'm not anywhere near as passionate about it with the recent change of them considering using the.
Yeah,
So I'm
I
not
think we
as
should just wait
nervous,
until,
So I have no problem.
Okay, so you want to just
table it until,
table this?
until we find out
it-
if the pre-filing is being, the preferred
Until
route
it's
is being
necessary to
changed.
bring it up again, okay?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Second.
You don't need to vote on that, do you?
No.
3.3, special town meeting, review and discuss articles for special town meeting on December 3rd. What would you like to discuss?
So in front of you tonight, there's a memorandum regarding the Treasurer Collector's Office. This has to do with the reorganization and the additional funding that will be required for that. That is under Article 4 of the town meeting. I think we've talked about, I think there's just a couple of articles sort of hanging out there that we haven't really settled on. Article 4, which is the Treasurer Collector's Office. Article 7, which is the MIS supplemental funding. And then Article 11, if we're going to do any kind of supplemental. We had talked about if we wanted to do something for pipeline legal costs, we would do it under Article 11, or if we wanted to, we had a preliminary discussion about some additional study on the compensation plan, whether we need to revise that. And we don't have, obviously, we don't have funding in the budget to do that normally, so we would have to do a supplemental for that. But and I can, if you want, I can walk you through the memorandum, or just kind of cut to the chase.
I do have a question. Treasurer collector, that's one position, right?
Yes.
When we went from a tax collector, elected tax collector, we changed that to
Appointed.
appointed, and we've been calling it town collector,
Correct.
okay? Is it correct to call that town collector or just collector?
It would really be town treasurer collector, or town collector treasurer, whichever,
Okay.
because with the
Because what we
legislation.
chose to do was combine them.
Correct, well, the special legislation that converted the collector from elected to appointed also changed the title from tax collector to town collector.
That was my.
That frees up the
point.
collector to collect water bills, collect other,
Right.
other payments, whatever they happen to be. And then in the recent months, we've talked about formally combining the two separate positions into a combined position.
Okay. Which is similar to what Kathy used to do.
Yeah, she held them in sort of different forms, because one was appointed, one was elected, but it
But
was
she
the
did
same
both
person
jobs.
doing both.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. Carolyn?
Well, I'm not quite sure what to say. We don't have any job descriptions to know, and that's what we had talked about the last time, that we would be able to look at the job descriptions and the duties. I can't honestly say I could support anything without seeing that, supporting the concept. But I did try and read through this. We just got it right before the meeting, real quickly, and I noticed on the smaller collection, not the collection clerk, the temporary position, we have temporary employee defined in our personnel policies and procedures, and it's an individual who is employed in a position in the town service which requires or is likely to require the services of an incumbent for a period not to exceed 90 days, and then the charter would give them protections to some degree. So that definitely needs to be clarified, because I don't think we have the ability to do that. So I really need the job descriptions. I really need to understand what each position's gonna be doing and how it compares to the existing staff that's there. And I thought that's what we were waiting
Andy,
for.
Did we put together any kind of job description in order to do this?
We do. I wish I had known that, that was something the board wanted to see. I would have happily shared those. I've had those for a month or two.
Okay, so you have the job description, which is what HRS used in order to
Correct.
to grade them, because
Yeah, I'll
they
send
had
those-
used
I'll
something.
email those out tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, because at the September 9th meeting, that's what we said we wanted to see. We wanted to see the job descriptions, and then we were going to have further discussions of it, you know, to get a memorandum right before the meeting.
Well, yes, Colin.
I mean, would it be helpful if we met to talk about this on next Tuesday? Just so we can get this buttoned up well in
I think
advance
we
of town
need
meeting?
to. I think we need to, okay?
And it just, you know, please don't add anything else.
I shan't. Okay,
Because I'm leaving
but,
next day.
but, I mean, it was, I'm sorry, I didn't understand it the same way. It was clear to me that, you know, a job description was being put together so that we could see what it was and put it all in a slot.
I actually,
But regardless, we can talk about it at a meeting Tuesday, if that's okay.
yeah, I actually just watched that tape, the September 9th tape, and you wanted to see the job descriptions too. I mean, it was pretty clear there that we need to see the
Yeah,
job
but I don't need to see it before anything else is done. I mean, I'm not going to walk, I don't think it's our job to walk through each and every step that needs to happen. The town administrator has the job descriptions, submitted them to HRS. HRS has graded them. I'd like to see it all as a package, that's
That's
all.
what, I would like to see the
I
job
mean-
descriptions. I'd like to know what each individual down there is gonna be responsible for, how we're gonna cross-train before I commit or even discuss or ask town meeting to support such a plan. If I don't understand it, how can I ask anybody else to?
Why do you need to know about cross-training and all of that? That's up to
Because
the
that's what
people.
that's what we had talked about. In the job descriptions, it'll identify what duties they're going to be responsible for. We bought a program from HRS. It's a comp and class plan. It's a very common thing. You take the job descriptions and you look at the comp and class plan. One of the things that I talked about on September 9th was the fact that, for example, Rebecca Hershey's job, one of the reasons she's a level 4 is because she was responsible for the collections of all the money. So I wanted to see how that was going to be delineated out in between the two job descriptions. So,
So we'll meet Tuesday.
okay, sounds good.
On the, do you want me to continue on the other stuff, Sue?
Yes, please.
So there's a spreadsheet along with that, that memorandum regarding the treasurer and collector. Most of it you saw before, not much has changed. I did plug in a number under Article 4 for the treasurer collector. 8,400 of that going into treasurer wages, 14,394 going into collector wages. And then on Article 7, consistent, I think, with what we talked about at the last meeting, $35,000 for IT investments. I just rounded that up, the number that that Melissa had in her plan, depending on which option was chosen for exchange, was between, I think, 32 and 36. So I just put it in for 35. It seemed like we were leaning towards a hosted exchange approach, which would be a little bit less. So put it in for 35,000 at this point, coming out of free cash. And then under Article 8, the $4,200 appropriation for the building department wages, proposing to do that as a transfer to come out of our insurance line, property and casualty insurance. So the total coming out of free cash would be $523,200. Obviously, the lion's share of that is $400,000 going to stabilization. Leaves us with a free cash amount to carry over, $427,079, which is a very robust number to go into the winter with, and puts us in good shape heading forward.
And are you supplying this to the FinCom as well?
Yes, I'll be meeting with the FinCom on Thursday.
Thank you.
It's actually, I know you're not the FinCom, Andrea, but you had a question about the moving fees itemized for when they move out of the headquarters. Did you get the information you needed?
I sent my questions to the chief. He was kind enough to respond, but he is still coming to the finance committee on Thursday to.
So you're talking about it's this Thursday?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It just stuck out in my head, and since I saw you over there.
I can share that with the board if you'd like, the breakdown of the moving costs.
Yeah, that would be great.
Carolyn?
How much do we have left in raise and appropriate, Andy?
We'll still be in the black, but we're very close. I didn't bring it with me.
Yeah, because I noticed we only had 84.43 out of raise and appropriate out of the 22,837 you're requesting for the treasurer's wages. Looks like you're appropriating everything out of raise and appropriate for the collector.
Correct. Yep. Right, so the total amount coming out of raise and appropriate is 22,837.
And that's just for them.
That's all associated with the treasurer and the collector. Yep.
Okay. And then you've decided to do a transfer for the building department instead of raise and appropriate?
Yeah, we were right at break-even point. You know, if we were negative by $4,200 or $4,000, whatever it would be, it's not the end of the world. We already know, you know, we've made some savings in our insurance budget for the year. You know, that unless there's future appropriations or future transfers out of there, that's just going to close out to free cash. So I figured it was easiest to just to transfer that out of insurance to cover the building department piece.
Yeah, because I went through.
Just want to make sure.
I went through my finance committee notes, and it was a 17,000 something that we had left in raise and appropriate, and I know I had asked you a couple of weeks ago, and you thought it was about 25. So I just wanted to clarify. It seems the number changes. I wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I did. I apologize I didn't bring it with me. I did look at it today, and we were at about 20, before these, the raise and appropriates that I've put forth tonight, we were at something like 23 or 24,000. So that's why I say we're right at break-even point. And Kim was working on that last week when she was in, but ironically with we've talked a lot about IT issues, and there were some IT issues last week that prevented her from updating the raise and appropriate balance. So I should have that the end of this week when she's back in.
Okay. I guess there's nothing.
But we're right in the ballpark.
All set? Anything else, Andy?
The only other thing, and I guess there's, we can leave it open as long as we have to leave it open, is under Article 11, if there's anything that the board wants to include in that catch-all article. We had, I am waiting for a price from HRS to look at the salary schedule, as we've talked about. There's been a lot of wage inflation, and we're seeing with some of the vacancies that we've had lately that we're at a competitive disadvantage in terms of salaries. I don't know if the board wants to, how formally the board wants to look at that, whether we want to have them do a formal study, or we want to do it in a less formal basis like we did last year and just accelerate the schedule by 2.5% or some other percentage.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I've been concerned about that too. In the last few searches that have been going on, it seems to be that the market is a little bit tighter than it was.
Yeah, and
I mean, I'm sure that's reflective of the economy's gotten a bit better,
Yeah.
you know. Carolyn?
Well, we paid HRS $15,000 in a salary survey to bring us up to comparable levels, was done 3 years ago. I don't know why we would pay them again to do the same thing
Why don't?
in 3 years.
Well, that's just a suggestion.
No, that's what I'm saying, just,
Yeah.
I don't
I
know
mean-
why we would do that.
But the other suggestion that I heard was we could just do like a cost of living increase as well.
Are we talking about future budgetary for the employees, or are you talking about kind of looking at where everyone's salary is now compared to, maybe I'm confused
It would
what
be-
you're looking for?
I'm sorry.
No?
It would be it would be just on the salary schedule, just to see, they would do an analysis of what the market is showing for particular positions, and provide a recommendation on whether we need to accelerate the schedule.
I mean,
It's-
we could simply just go up
Right.
too. I mean, that's another option. My concern is that you kind of don't know what you're looking for.
And if I could, not all positions accelerate at the same rate.
That's
You know,
right.
you get high-skilled positions. IT is a perfect example of a field that is really just on sort of a runaway track, because it's so hard to find really good, talented people that are willing to work in the public sector. So that might be changing at 5% a year. You could have other positions, finance positions, for instance, like accountants and treasurers and collectors. Maybe that's going up at 5% a year. Other positions that don't require the same level of education and skill may only be going up at 2% a year. And that's the benefit of what a consulting firm like HRS can provide for
So
us.
what would they charge us for something like that? I
Well,
mean, this
I'm
is not
waiting.
the same comprehensive thing that they did before.
No, it wouldn't-
This is just going out and finding out what's the market look like.
Correct. It would be just a market analysis. It wouldn't be job descriptions. It wouldn't be reclassifications to see which positions fit with each other. It would really be just like a third of what the prior project was. And it's something that they acknowledged to us when they delivered the product to us, that you do have to do these things from time to time. You have to stay current with the market. So, we received a good product from them, but we do need to maintain it. That's been the history, or the problem in the past, is that we haven't kept up. So that's what I would
Okay,
like to
well-
be able to do.
Colin, you had a question?
So when would they have something by next week? By
I'll
Tuesday?
talk to Sandy and see if she can get me.
You adding to the agenda,
Yeah, I just
Colin?
said let's not add to the agenda, and I just
Yeah.
added to it.
Well, and I think it makes sense though.
I'd just like to see what they would charge.
Yeah, I think it's going to be somewhere in the $2,000 to $4,000 range, but I'll see based on preliminary conversations that Sandy and I had about this.
Carolyn?
Well, we belong to the Mass Municipal Personnel Association. I just saw that we paid our dues. They supply you with a CD. You can see every salary across Massachusetts. I wouldn't be supporting HRS to do another salary survey when we just had one done less than 3 years ago. Me personally, obviously, you too. But in order to keep our comp and class plan up, what you need to do and what happened to ours historically in the past is we starting people out at different steps. That was one of the problems. The second problem is starting them out at higher steps instead of starting them at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then one of the other problems was your comp and class plan is designed that either every year or every 2 years, it's adjusted by the CPI index, which usually comes out in November, and then they're allowed to move up steps. If we don't keep your comp and class plan up to that, you're gonna constantly be chasing salaries. It's not just enough to give them 2.5%, they need to move up a step, and the whole plan itself has to be adjusted by the CPI index. So that's historically what has not been occurring because we've never been in a situation where we've been able to keep up with that.
So it sounds like we really do need to talk this through.
Yeah.
Which is all I was
Which,
thinking.
you know, I mean, I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's more than one thing that we could do, but at least we're acknowledging that it does need to get looked at. So I think it's worthwhile to have these conversations.
Go ahead, you can do it.
Just, it doesn't do any harm to talk about it and to discuss it once we
Yeah.
have an amount to, it's not this, you know, number that we don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
To Carolyn's point, she's right. The ideal scenario would be that we do a COLA every year, CPI adjustment.
And everybody moves.
And a step.
That's right.
Because that brings the whole schedule forward so that when you bring somebody in, you can start them at step one if that's, you know, if that's the appropriate step for them, and you're still in the market.
Carol?
I don't know if, Colin and Sue, if you have it, but I do have it, and I know Andy has it. If you read the booklet that HRS gave you about the comp, it outlines all of these details.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm fine with it. I understand what you're saying. And I think it's good for us to talk about it, you know? Yes, Andrea?
I was curious, the last few years, we've been cost of living raises, but they've not actually been the cost of living. They've been 2.5, which has been the same as the step raise. If we do a cost of living this year, would it be the actual cost of living, or would it be what we've done in the past?
I think that's what we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we did the first,
It's always been
let's see, January of
2.5.
12 is when we implemented. Then July of 12, we gave a step. July of 13, we gave a step. July of 14, we kept everybody on the same step, but we gave a 2.5% COLA. So we accelerated the schedule. We probably should have, but again, you know, we're hamstrung by our budget
But
situation.
the COLA raise that we gave them was still 2.5.
That's right.
They didn't
Correct.
go up a step, but their salary went up to what the next.
So it's
step
comparable.
Right,
was.
it went up the
It's
same as the
comparable to-
step.
yeah.
So to the employees, there was no difference, correct?
Except to the people who were maxed out and they got a raise this way, where otherwise they wouldn't have.
Correct, for those people that were at the top step,
Yeah.
that wouldn't normally have
Okay,
had
so
any-
can we talk about it?
Yep.
So now we have 2 things on the agenda for next week. That's okay. I think it does need to be talked about, talked through. There's more than one
I just want
way
to,
to get to where we need to
I
go.
just want to
and-
know what it would cost.
Anything else, Andy?
Not on town meeting, I don't think.
Okay. 3.4, Review Board of Selectmen Policy Number 2-05, Sick Time Donation.
You want me to start on this one?
Please.
So we talked about this I think it was a couple of meetings ago. And the issue came up that I didn't have the history that this was, this policy went into place for an employee that was a fractional employee, but who had an illness, and there was a desire on the part of the employees to donate time to this person. So, you know, obvious altruistic intent behind the employee's desires and the board's desire in adopting it. I guess I haven't changed this from what you saw before. because there's really a policy decision for the board to make. And that is, do you want to provide this, provide for this policy or provide for sick leave donation for employees that are otherwise not entitled to sick leave? They don't earn sick leave otherwise. And this, I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer to it. It's a little, to me, it's a little bit unusual that an employee who doesn't accrue any sick time because they only work 5 or 10 or 15 hours a week could be eligible for sick leave donation, but that's a policy decision for the board, and that's the direction.
How does my board feel?
Well, we created that policy 10 years ago. It's worked fine. We haven't had any issues with it, and it has been there to support. I know one of the questions that you had asked, Sue, was, well, how do you determine what the fractional employee would get? You know, they wouldn't get 8 hours a day of sick time. So what was done as an average was taken over 6 months what they would earn, you know, what they would do for.
That's not in here.
No, no, it's not, and that's what I thought we were kind of going to be looking at. But I appreciate all the work Mr. Sheehan did on it, but I feel passionately that the policy was in place for 10 years and was kind of to help employees that didn't have any other, that wasn't entitled to earn any type of sick time or didn't have the chance to because they were under 20 hours per week. And so somebody like me would want to donate maybe 5 hours to them, and maybe they'd only be able to use it a couple of hours a week, depending on what they averaged out in for hours. But it was something, it was a way for the employees to give to others that were having a tough time.
Colin?
I mean, I think I agree because the, it's getting close to 9, my brain shutting down.
Come on, stay with me, we don't have much more.
It's the employee's choice to donate the time to somebody. So everyone, someone's parent gets sick, a loved one is in the hospital, their child is sick. I don't see a problem with it.
I don't see a problem with it either. I think that in this day of not caring about, people not caring about each other, or businesses sometimes not caring about the person, it gives people the ability to care and to show that they care. And I have no problem with that, but maybe just putting in that little formula would suffice then.
So another board doesn't get confused in a few years.
Well, yeah, but that's all, just to be able to document it,
Absolutely.
that this is something that's, and I wouldn't even mind even putting that in here. This is being put in place at the request of the employees to be able to help one another regardless of how many hours they work.
I would support that.
Okay? So, and then it's clear to the next board what, why it exists, what made that happen, and how it's figured out. Does that sound reasonable?
Very.
So Andy, if you could take care of those little revisions and then bring it back and we can vote on it, but not Tuesday.
That's what I was going to ask. Are we up to item number 3?
No. Okay, that goes to the next one. 3.5, review and comment on mandatory referral notices from the Board of Appeals and Planning Board relative to North Middlesex Regional High School project. Yep, we got it. Yeah, they're having a couple of hearings. One of them is for work on, I guess the zoning part has to do with the amount of the drainage and stuff.
The zoning is for gravel removal and work in the aquifer district.
Okay.
And the planning board part
It's a site plan review.
is the site plan review.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
All opposed?
You guys okay with that? Mhm. Good. 3.6 Unitil Substation Reviewed Draft Correspondence. I don't have that. I do. I do. Anybody want to talk about it?
So
Colin?
I think it's straightforward to the point. I think it's well written, and I am okay with signing this and making sure that my electric bill is always paid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I would move that we approve and sign the correspondence as attached to be forwarded off to Unitil regarding the substation.
Second.
Do you have a copy there that doesn't have a 3.6 on it?
Yes.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Do you want to explain, do you want to read that?
I'll read. Why don't I read it? Well,
Yes, okay, please.
this is to John DiNapoli, Municipal and Community Services Manager for Unitil Corporation. Dear Mr. DiNapoli, the Townsend Board of Selectmen has on several occasions discussed the issue of noise caused by the mobile generator used in the past at the West Townsend substation. The board is dissatisfied with the progress Unitil has made to date in committing to address the noise issue going forward. The Townsend Board of Selectmen hereby expresses its expectation that upon installing a mobile generator in the future, Unitil will install a sound barrier sufficient to muffle the sound and the sound caused by such mobile generator. We trust you will ensure Unitil's cooperation in this regard. Please contact Andrew Sheehan, Town Administrator, if you have any questions in this regard. Very truly yours, Townsend Board of Selectmen.
Thank you. 3.7, review and approve Unitil application to cross, alter, or construct within a public way.
I would move that we approve the application for Unitil to cross, alter, or construct within a townway for gas main and services at 87 Brookline Street.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. 3.8, Route 119 sidewalk, continuation of discussion. Is this something that we can put off until the next meeting?
Well, it'll be real brief, I know.
Okay.
The reason that I wanted to discuss it today is I know Mr. Sheehan was going to have Ed talk to Sampson, Weston Sampson, right, to kind of get an idea. Well, I spoke with Barry Lorian at Mass Highway, and we sort of have to start the process all over. We need to get a hold of Arthur or Ann, Arthur Frost or Ann down there, and work with MRPC to have the sidewalk project added to the tip list. They have a list of approved contractors or approved engineers that you can work with for the cost, right on their website. But I wasn't sure what the board wanted to do, if we wanted to work with MRPC or talk to the project managers to see how we could get it on the tip list, what the time frame with that would be, before we decided whether we wanted to go with trying to construct 3 miles worth of sidewalk, or as the letter that you had signed, just for the rail trail.
My feeling is, first of all, I thought we were waiting for Ed to look into it, okay? And I wasn't thinking of it as formally getting the process going as much as, give me a ballpark. Just give me a ballpark. Is the 100,000 that we have going to be enough for the engineering thing? If it's not,
For just the rail trail or for the entire project?
what's it going to cover? Okay, if it's not, it made me wonder too, if what we signed for the rail trail was even something that we're allowed to have done. I mean, I don't know.
Well-
Because how was that money voted at town meeting to begin with? Colin?
And maybe it was close to 9 o'clock and I wasn't thinking clearly. I thought that we were just getting a ballpark so as to decide how to proceed.
Right, that's what I thought.
And that's what I've been waiting for
Yeah.
from Ed.
Well, because if I could just continue, Callan, it's like, there's $100,000 sitting there, okay? Town thought we were doing X. A couple years ago, we looked at that 100,000, and we had this issue with the rail trail needing that piece of sidewalk, and we said, all right, well, when it comes time for the rail trail, we'll do that piece of sidewalk with that money. Okay, that was what was decided. Do we have the right to do that, number one? We did, okay, so that's fine, it's still for sidewalk on 119. The question that is on the table right now is that enough money to do the engineering work? If it's not, then we have to go back to the table, meaning we have to go back to town meeting and say, you know, is this what you want?
Well, that's why I'm bringing this up. You have two different projects. Well, the original appropriation was for the 3 miles of sidewalk, and then you have what this board supported a couple years ago, just around there, so we need to decide what it is we're looking for. But to get it onto the tip list, Andy,
I
you
don't
probably
want
have
it on
more
the tip
experience.
list yet. I'm not ready to even put it there, because I don't know if we even have enough money to talk about it. We might have to go back to town meeting, depending on
But do you
either
understand how
one.
long the process to getting it on the tip list, to even being able to have Mass Highway look at doing anything with the project, that the time range is gonna be?
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with that.
So this is gonna be long past the rail trail development if we don't get on top of this and have some conversations and get moving forward. The rail trail isn't even gonna be able to.
And I understand your concern, but I think it can wait a couple weeks until our next meeting.
Okay.
I just want to hear what Ed has to say. I want a ballpark.
Okay.
Because I think that's going to help us decide what do we do next. Okay?
I mean,
Colin?
a couple weeks isn't gonna make any difference. So, and I don't,
Andy?
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
I just wanna, like you said, Sue, I want a number so that we have.
I just want to know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah, a rough cost for the entire length of, or from, was it from the center to?
I mean, if a memo
From the high
comes
school,
back
yeah.
from Ed saying LOL, on even the small section, then we're back to the drawing board, you know? And I think there's a couple of options that we might want to discuss, but I don't want to put the cart before the horse. So if you could ask Ed, tell him that we're expecting that for the next meeting, not Tuesday, the following.
The next regular
The
scheduled
next
meeting.
regularly scheduled meeting. All set?
Yep.
Appointments. Zoning Board of Appeals, review request of Zoning Board of Appeals to appoint Kelly L. Chambers to fill the unexpired term of Julie Johnson for a term running from the date of appointment until June 30th, 2017.
I would move that we appoint Kelly Chambers to the Townsend Zoning Board of Appeals for a term beginning November 18th, 2014 until June 30th, 2017.
Second.
I have a question. We usually get like a little volunteer form,
Yeah, I did get one,
just kind of telling us
yeah, Kelly has been on as the,
about the person.
sure. Kelly has been on the ZBA as their associate member for a year, I guess since 2008. That's when she first applied for the zoning board. So she has served in that associate capacity for a period of time, and with Julie Johnson's recent resignation, it was the zoning board's thought that Kelly would make a good full member. I do have her response form if you want to see it.
I just was curious because usually we have it attached.
We typically do,
Okay.
yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would, go ahead. I would move that we review and approve the bills payable warrant and the payroll warrant outside of session.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to adjourn at 8:56.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're making him sweat, huh?
Good night, folks.